Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 13th Shiny Gathering. I'm Gigi, I'm a journalist at Epsilon, and today we are joined by Pasha, who is a brilliant innovation machine learning engineer and the creator of our latest source package, Tapyr. So he'll be sharing more details about this wonderful PyShiny framework with us today. And please leave your questions in the chat as we'll be taking them towards the end of the session. And now I'll hand over to Kasha to introduce himself to us and tell us about Tapir now.
Sure. Yeah. So, hello. My name is Pasha, and I'm the main person behind the Tapyr. Please write on chat in case of any problems with my voice, if it's shuddering or something else is wrong. Uh, I have so that I have some doubts regarding my internet, so that's why I'm asking you. Um, Yeah, so we've met here today. We've met here to discuss Tapir. I'd like to introduce um, this template to you. Hi, Leif. It's nice that you've joined today's session. And well, first I'd like to show you how you can start with Tapir on your own machine, or actually maybe in the cloud. We'll discover it, and then I'll go through the features of Tapir, um, because there are many features of Tapir that are very similar to features that we have in Rhino. Some are like one-to-one copy. Some of them are just different, and I like to make you more familiar with them. And in case you have any questions, feel free to ask them on chat, and I'll ask them. I'll answer them later on. So, shall we start? Or Gigi, maybe you have some other ideas? Uh, Gigi already disappeared. That's fine. I don't see any protests from the chat, so let me start. Yeah, maybe let me start with sharing my screen. For example, cool. So this is our template repository. And in this repository, you will find the Tapyr, right? So what's the main difference? Maybe not main, but one of the biggest difference when you compare Rhino and Tapyr is that Tapyr is not a package actually. It is a template, repository template. In the past, before we've created Rhino, we've created Shiny template, for example. Probably most of you don't remember that. But it was one step before we've made Rhino into a full package that we know that we use in almost all our commercial projects at Epsilon and so on. We are experimenting and we've created a Shiny template like for R. And here we've created a Tapyr template, so PyShiny template. So the idea is to have uh, many best practices already from the very beginning of your project. And if you want to play around with Tapyr, you can either use this template and let me zoom in. Is my screen visible well enough? Please write on chat, or should I zoom in? Yes, Jeff says that it's okay. So I can create a new repository. So let me maybe create a Shiny Gathering Tapyr repository. And maybe let's make it Epsilon's repository, and even we can make it public. We may delete it later. So I create a repository. They're generating the repository. Okay, and now I will clone this repository to my machine. So, and open it in VS Code. So you have to excuse me for a second. Actually, maybe I can already. Stop sharing here, share screen, window, this time VS Code. So I'm, just git cloning it. Cool. And now I'll go into this. And now, okay, so I have another window of VS Code. And it this. So here we have this repository copied to cloned to my machine, my laptop, and nothing else happened yet. So as written in the documentation of Tapyr, you can either use dev container or poetry. So let's not think about what's dev container now and what's poetry. Let's assume that you've went to the poetry, you've Googled poetry, you've installed poetry, and now you have poetry installed. And once you've cloned the repo, you just go and make poetry install. And this installs all the packages defined in a PyProject DOM. So it installs Shiny, it installs, for example, Reach, Loguru, and some other things. And you can think about it as kind of rn from the R world. It's very similar. If I want to add new package to this project, for example, NumPy, then I would go with poetry add NumPy. And now poetry told me, okay, I'll use this version for NumPy, and I'll figure out whether there are any dependencies, and I'll install them. Probably if I install pandas, I'll have some additional dependencies. Yes, for example, PyTZ package has also been installed, and tzdata package has been also installed because pandas requires them. And in PyProject DOM, only those two lines appeared here. But we have poetry log, and in poetry log, we can see that we have NumPy here and pandas, and we have pandas dependencies. I guess that you have the feeling what's going on. So okay, now let's say that we want to run the example. I want to run this app that is already like the default Tapyr app. So I would go with poetry shell, and these are like poetry things, but I had to run poetry shell to open terminal with correct environment. So I had to activate environment. You can name it whatever you want. The point is that if I go with Python here, this Python will be the proper Python with the proper packages and everything. And to run Shiny app, I have to go and Shiny run app.py. I can go with reload. And this the app is running under this link. So let me maybe copy it. And to not escape VS Code, I will go with a browser. And this is like a browser inside VS Code. And as you can see, we have an app running. And to see that this app is indeed running, we can go to, where we want to edit this app now. So as you've seen here, we are running app.py. And app.py, we immediately see that we have this Loguru and Shiny underlined, and that import Shiny could not be resolved. And this is because we have wrong environment here, and we need to get this environment selected in VS Code, So I click here and I go with LTHB. So we see that this name is the same name as this. I click this. Okay, and VS Code already recognized the proper Python environment. Okay, so we are running this app.py, and in this app.py we have from Shiny import app, and this app is here, and we are using some UI with CSS and some server. So actually see that we are importing, and this UI with CSS is actually like has this get dashboard UI call here, and we are using some server. So maybe let's go to this and that place. And in VS Code to follow the get dashboard UI, for example, function, I can press Control or like Command, sorry, Command, and I press with my mouse here. So where am I? I'm under Tapyr template, view, root, UI.py. And in case you wonder why I was not importing from UI here, that's because of in the init.py, I have defined that I'm importing get dashboard UI here. It's just like a technicality, but it shows that the whole things regarding box and the problems with box in R are not non-existing to large extent in Python, because the importing system is built into the language, which is kind of nice. Anyway, we're going to the get dashboard UI, and we want to have this on site. Maybe let's close the terminal. So this is the app. This is the code that generates this app. So if I add here UI h1 hello Shiny gathering, and I Control S and I reload, something should change, and it didn't. Why? Oh, because we're using Python 12, we already have pretty good errors. And if you've coded in Python, for example, like 5 years ago, you are probably used to much worse errors. And here I see syntax error, invalid syntax. Perhaps you forgot a comma in this line. Okay, that's a nice error, because indeed I forgot to add a comma here. I've added it. I've saved it. Save the file. Reload this browser. Oh, and I've seen maybe, what I've done. Hop, hop. Come on. Toggle terminal. Yeah, so I see hello Shiny gathering here. So indeed, this is, and if I remove this, yeah, it's automatically updates here. So this whole, UI span and everything is only made here to make a nice landing page for Tapyr in some sense. But I can remove this all and make that, yeah, like something like this. Let us, GitHub Copilot write code for us. So this is a regular Shiny app, by Shiny app, and we have server here. So obviously we can make some interactive, reactive programming. Yeah. So this section answers how to run your app in Shiny, and how to actually edit the Tapyr to make it your page. Do we have any questions here? Okay, I'm still waiting for the questions on chat. But for now, let's go, for example, to the app.py. Let's say that you don't like that we are importing from Tapyr template, because my let's say that my what? My project is not supposed to be called Tapyr template, but for example, Shiny Gathering project. And to rename it, I can in VS Code just I typed one more time F2, and here Shiny Gathering project, or maybe dashboard. Board, enter. Cool. And as we can see, what has changed? This directory has been renamed to Shiny Gathering Dashboard. And what should be changed and hasn't been changed is that we should go to pyproject.toml and change all the Tapyr template occurrences to Shiny Gathering Dashboard. And since we've changed the name of the package, we should run poetry install one more time. And we should activate the let's kill this terminal. Okay, so what happened is that VS Code assumes that we are working in one environment, and now I've changed the name of the environment because the name of the environment should follow the name of the project. And what does it mean? It probably means that I should reload the window and keep my fingers crossed. No, it didn't help. So let me try. Okay, and if we now what? Gathering. Okay, so probably Poetry still reused the same environment, and it just changed the name of the project. That's cool. Sorry for this detour. I see a question from Liv and from Pavel. You've said either go with Poetry or dev containers. Did I get it right? Can you explain? Yes, I can, and I'll move to it in a second. And Pavel is surprised that rename symbol also renames directories. Yes, and that's very cool. So maybe to go with dev containers, let's come back to the GitHub. Let's come back to GitHub. And as you've seen here, we have created a new repository option and also open in code space. And if we, let's just blindly and dumbly click open in a code space, and we'll discuss it in a second. So GitHub told me that it's setting up the code space. And here we see that we are building code space. And what does it mean? So Tapyr comes with dev container file defined. So if we go to the repository, we see this .dev container directory here. And here we see dev container.json. And I'm not sure if everyone knows what Docker is. So just briefly, let me explain. So in the past, when you wanted to have a new machine, for example, you have a new project and you must have a new machine for this project, you had to get a new laptop, basically. Then people came up with the idea of having a virtual machine. so like VM. And then you could have different running machines on the same physical machine. And you can now you can rent them from the cloud, right? So you can get the VM from GCP or AWS. But in the past, like I remember times when I was, like maybe like 13 years old, and I already was able to use some like virtual box to have, for example, Linux running on my Windows machine. And this was kind of virtualization. So to have a separate system on my like parent system, so on my laptop, for example. And then people realize that, well, you don't actually need the whole system. You can have just some subset of the system, and those we can have like multiple different parts of the system running and behaving kind of like a different machine at the same like physical machine. And this is more or less, with very big simplifications, the idea behind Docker containers. So Docker container is like a kind of like a machine, and you can run this machine on other machines. And why this is cool is because now you can define the recipe for this container and run the same container either on your machine or in a cloud with some cloud provider. And you have larger chances of things working on your machine and on some other machine. So for example, I'm working on some project and I want to share this project, let's say, with Pavel, and I'm telling Pavel, please check this issue that I have in a project. And if I have the container, which defines the Docker container for the project, Pavel can just open this recipe for the container. It will be built for him, so prepared. And then he has the exact same environment, like working environment, as me. And yeah, this is cool. And this dev container.json file defines that we'll be using some Microsoft image with Python 3.10 as a base image. Then we'll add features. So we'll add poetry and node to this image. That's, these are like additional things that you want to have in your image. And then we are also defining some like even VS Code extensions that we need, and also what commands should be run after like to build the image. So here we are running poetry install to install all the packages, and then we are running poetry install, and we'll get to what is poetry shortly, but think about it as Shiny Test or Cypress in R and Rhino. So, okay, so these are the containers. And as Liv has mentioned, and as you've seen, you can also use Tapyr with poetry. So having a separate environment, like the whole environment, so separate container for each of your projects, has many benefits. It's much easier to share your project and to be sure that if something works on your machine, then it will also work on your friend's machine and so on. But it's not possible in every scenario to use this approach. For example, at your company, you may not be able to have Docker installed on your machine. So to have Docker installed on your machine, I would say it's something bigger than to have Python or Python package installed on your machine, because Poetry is just a Python package that does smart things. But you can probably easily get your IT team to install some package for you. But to install the whole Docker is possibly much harder to convince the security and everything. So we can also use poetry, and poetry is it's like an renv for Python. So while, for example, we don't have problem in Python world with bugs and whether you should import things this way, or maybe you should use the honey modules or some other approach. We have multiple ways of managing dependencies of the project. So we can use just pip, we can use poetry, you can use like UV and Rye, or pip and or something else. Poetry seems like the best choice for now, so that's why we're using this in the Tapyr. Please let me know whether it answered your questions, or do you have some? Would you like to understand something else regarding the poetry and dev containers? And I'll take a look at one of the questions. Okay. So the question from Abdul Rahman is: can you push image with your app to Docker Hub registry account? I mean, I'm not sure. I guess so. Maybe you have to create a dev container JSON in a different way. So you can also use a Docker file here in the dev container JSON. So you can have the Docker file and then use this Docker file in dev container JSON. We're not using this here in Tapyr because I think that it's kind of an overkill, at least for what we are doing with Tapyr. But since this is a template, you may want to choose this approach. And yes, in principle, you can develop the app and then already have a Docker file to push to your registry of your Docker images and deploy it somewhere. Yeah, that's possible. And maybe let's move to the question from Samuel about what do we recommend for testing applications with Tapyr. And this is a very good question that I'd like to answer with an example. So let's come back to this application. Let's try to run. I hope that it won't blow up. No, it doesn't. Okay, so we have this app. And we already have some tests defined. And we have two types of tests. So we have, I mean, obviously you can have much more tests, but I would divide tests into more like unit tests and end-to-end tests. And what do I mean by them is unit test things that are not Shiny related, not directly Shiny related. So for example, in this test utils thing, we have a function to test the divide function. So given x equal 2 and y equal 2, we expect the result to be 1.0. So when we get the result, we assert that the result is equal to expect. And to run this test, you run pytest command. It collects all the tests and runs them. You even get the coverage report, but maybe that's not a thing to focus here. But we see that we have those two dots represent two tests from this file, from the test utils file. And here we see that if we divide by 0, then we expect to have some error. Actually, we expect a 0 division error. And pytest also handles this gracefully. So what is nice that this function, like looking at this function, you don't see any pytest here. Like nothing, right? And PyTest just discovers this function because it is prefixed with test, and it's in a file that is also prefixed with test, and it will discover this function and run it. And here, test divide by 0. So given this, when this, we also want to check whether our logs contain this message, because we have logging in our application. And this way we can check whether this logguru sync, so sync with all the log messages, contains this error. But more interesting are the end-to-end tests. So the test UI, for example. So this is a test function that you probably want to always have in your test suite. So you want to test whether you can start up the app. And in Tapyr, we are using Playwright that you can also use for Rhino, for our Shiny. But in Rhino, we are using Cypress for end-to-end testing. And Playwright is like a different library that also performs the same things as Cypress. But what's cool about Playwright is there are a few things. So one thing is that it has Python API. So I don't have to write my end-to-end test in JS while I work in Python application. I can have everything in one language, which is cool on its own. And then Playwright is also a testing library that POSIT uses when developing PyShiny. So when they are testing PyShiny, they are testing it with Playwright. And probably near the end of this year, POSIT will also expose the testing API for PyShiny. And this API will be Playwright friendly, because they are using Playwright already there internally. So that's why we are using Playwright. And as you can see, it's fairly easy to test the application with Playwright. You can Google how to use Playwright. For example, here we are testing that if we go to app URL is defined in this conf test file. We want to, from page, we want to get test ID docs link. If we go to the UI, we see that we have some part of the UI where we define the data test ID, argument prop, parameter argument, whatever you want to call it. And we're getting this part of the page, and we expect this part of the page to contain text start with the docs. I think it's maybe not self-explainable, but still possible to understand. And you may wonder, what is this page? So this page is a thing provided by Playwright for PyTest. That is like an browser window that you can interact with. So you can, for example, go to some URL, you can click on some button, and so on. And in this conf-test.py, what is cool is that we define Shiny server. So you can read about it later. It's I don't want to explain what are fixtures and what is different scope of fixtures in PyShiny, or in testing in general, and in PyTest in particular. But the important thing is that there is Shiny server running all the time when you're running tests. So because we are running this server on this app URL, app host here. So this is app URL. Because we are running server on this app URL, we can go to this app URL inside our tests. And this works just out of the box, right? So we just type PyTest, and we have this. Cool. Samuel, do you have any more questions regarding testing with Tapyr? And in the meantime, I can answer Alvaro's question. So how do you deploy a Tapyr app to a publishing platform such as POSIT Connect? So to deploy it to POSIT Connect, you have to run aras connect deploy, basically. Maybe let me go to the documentation now. Yeah, so this is the documentation of Tapyr, and I really encourage you to come here and at least skim read it. And why? Because of the Tapyr's Tapyr features section. So I've spent plenty of time to discuss what are the possible problems that you might have in general when developing. So, for example, problems with the environment setup, with the repository structure, that you don't know how to, start the repository to make it like future-proof. How to make sure that you have a high quality of your code in your project. How to make sure that you have everything, validated and so on. And everything is described here. And one of the things is also efficient deployment with Aras Connect for Alvaro. So the problem, you have Tapyr app, now you want to share it. Your company already has POSIT Connect instance. How you do it? So it's as easy as Aras Connect deploy Shiny. And this app represents the directory. Period. Do you have any more questions regarding deployment? I can maybe, please write your questions if you have any.
We have a question in the Q&A.
Oh, we have a Q&A section as well.
Yeah, which is better. For Conda.
Okay, so let me share the documentation. And let's go to Tapyr features overview, and let's actually look for Conda. Oh, there's no Conda mentioned direct. Yeah, but here we have 10 appearance of Conda. Why not Conda? And when Conda? So I'm just copy pasting this link to the email answer Pavel. Okay, but this is not the full answer. So the full answer is Conda. Like, what is the purpose of poetry and what is the purpose of Conda? So the purpose of Conda is to have an environment for scientific experiments. That's how I would call it. So you want to have an environment, and then in this environment you can install Python and you can install other packages, but you can also install Julia or R with Conda. And what is important for example, for machine learning engineers, and I used to be one for a few years, with Conda you can also install, for example, CUDA drivers. And these are not Python packages. These are, additional artifacts that you may need along with your project. So in a company that I've worked in, we had a huge cluster with a few GPUs, and different projects required different versions of CUDA drivers. And to get around this problem, everyone had their own Conda environment, like every project, no, not every person. And if you needed a particular version of CUDA drivers, you were just installing them, and that was the solution. Here with Poetry, the problem is that you want to have a project, Python project, and you want to have it reproducible. You want to have it like clean, nicely organized. You want to be able to get the dependencies. You want to be able to recreate the same project like 1 year later, and so on. And for this purpose, Conda is much worse. Poetry is much better for reproducibility and for making your application, like future-proof. And for example, Conda is known for having very slow dependency resolver. So if you have, like, for example, 50 packages already installed, and then you install one more package, then you may wait for like 10 minutes and see some like no warning or error message at the end. And so, for example, what I use, so I use both Conda and Poetry, depending on what I'm working on. So if I work on one dashboard, shiny dashboard, then every shiny dashboard will have its own Poetry environment with their own, dependencies and everything. But if I need to run some quick analysis in Jupyter, for example, in Notebook, then I will use probably my Conda environment with all the things installed there that I use for daily analysis, like polars, matplotlib, and so on. I hope that it answers your question. If not, please go and write follow-up questions. Okay, so Samuel, not related to testing, but can we expect PyShiny and Tapyr to place nice with Python's type-safe functionality? Of course we can. And let me go to VS Code. And once again, I really encourage you to give a try to the documentation that I've prepared, because it's full of examples. And for example, this if you've never came across type safety or type hinting in general, the documentation will tell you why it's a useful thing and how Python goes around it and how Tapyr goes around. Yeah. So for example, let's go to this function, and as we see here, this function should take 2 ints and return float. But let's say that we write that it should return int, and in VS Code we are turning on the type checking. So please look carefully. You're clicking on this curly braces here, and you must have type checking to on. Okay. And now I immediately get an error here. Expression of type float is incompatible with return type int. Float is incompatible with int. What does it mean? It means that VS Code sees that the return type of the x divided by, like of int divided by some other int, will be float. And I declared here that the return type should be int. So I can get an error. I can run Pyright here. Pyright is type checking thing. And as you can see, okay, I get some warning regarding the Pyright version, but also I get the error regarding, like, in this file. So if I control press on this file, I'm already taken to this line. And Pyright is also run in the CI/CD pipeline. So we may ask, what is CI/CD pipeline? So we have, for example, these tests that you've already seen. So we have this test that checks whether the app is running, or tests whether the divide function works as expected. But those tests work only if you run them, and if you don't run them, they are like meaningless. So the idea is to have them run on every push to GitHub. So we have a GitHub workflow defined here. In case you don't know, if you've never came across GitHub workflow or GitHub action, is the set of things that happen on every push, or you can define whether it's on every push to all branches, or only on the main, or only on pull requests, or whatever. It's also I've also elaborated on this more in the docs. But the point is that if you push something to the repository, we are checking out this repository, then we are running dev container CI, and this CI builds the dev container. So we are building this whole this whole environment for this project to run, and then we are running the quality checks script. And in this script we are running PyTest, and we are also running Playwright. Oh, I can actually remove this from the template anyway. The point is that now on every push to the repository, you will run all the tests, and you will check whether all types are described properly. And if not, you will get a notification that, oh, something is wrong. So if we go to the repository, okay, you see that we have this green check here. And if we go to validate Tapyr details, we see that the container was built with like some images resolving and so on. Then the container has been started, and then we've run command in container. And we've run tests, and we've also run Playwright. So running not Playwright, Pyright for type checking. We see zero errors, zero warnings, zero informations. Playwright also has been run, but here. And yeah, so once again, because like it may not be that obvious on the first glance, but this simple test here, test startup. You may say that, oh, why do I want to have tests that just tests whether the app has started? But if you see that this test is passing in your CI, you know that you have a correct dev container definition, and you can actually build this dev container. And when you've built this dev container, you see that you can run the code inside this dev container. So it means that you have all the dependencies installed and correct. And then you're checking whether you can actually at least start the app. And if you can, this test will pass. And you have all of this already working out of the box in Tapyr. So you don't have to create this, and you can focus on writing the code that you really want. I hope that explains some things for you. Okay, so Samuel also wrote about okay, type safety is cool, but maybe this is a reach. But what about WASM? Right now, Shiny. I mean, there is Shiny. Probably you are referring to Shiny Live. So Shiny Live is an option to run Shiny in your browser, but like entirely in your browser without any server. And I will just ask you to Google it. And because applications that I was working on for a long time, they didn't require Shiny Live. I haven't focused on introducing Shiny Live things to Tapyr. So yeah, to answer one of the questions, Gigi was supposed to ask me this question: why we've created Tapyr? So we were working on a few PyShiny projects at Epsilon already, and I saw myself copy pasting the same stuff over and over again. And so we were, oh, but we should add tests to this project, or oh, actually, we would like to add some CI/CD pipeline, and oh, that would be cool if we have some good rules for code formatter and linter. And yes, we already have, for example, many rules defined in a route.tom file. Or maybe now how to add like a CSS to our app. And we are adding these things. Or we want to have some configuration. So how should we add the configuration in the best way to our application? And all of this accumulated, and in the end, we've gathered it, we described it, we've prepared the docs, and we have Tapyr. And where it will go next, we'll see. I'm happy to say that we are already using Tapyr, and not by me, but by other folks at Epsilon for Fortune 500 company. So they also see value in building stuff in Python in Shiny. So that's cool. If you have any questions, please let me know. I want to answer two questions. One from Abdul Rahman. So please, what is the function of this decorator? Yeah, so this is one of many things already configured in Tapyr. So you may, at some point, you may think, oh, but that would be so cool if I would be able to log things in my application. So we already prepared Logger for you. And one of the Loggurus, so Logguru is a logging library for Python, one of many, and this is known to be very, very nice. Has this decorator Logguru catch, and every time this function will error, we will get already this logged. So I don't have to put logging here, but I can just apply this decorator, and I will have in the logs the exception. And I have to rewrite this exception to make it proper to propagate it as I wanted in this example. So Pavel asks, what is the future? PyShiny will replace Shiny, R Shiny. I don't think so. I mean, so in R, if you want to build dashboard, it's simple. You're using R Shiny. Maybe you may use Quarto dashboards in some situations, but if you have R code and you want to make dashboard out of it, you're using R Shiny. In Python, you have also other packages or projects. You can use not PyShiny, but you can use Streamlit, or you can use Dash, or you can create a full stack application with Django. And I think that Streamlit has many problems that are appearing when you're developing in Streamlit like very quickly. So just recently, I wanted to build some small dashboard, and I thought, oh, it will be like very small and very simple. So I will use Streamlit, and after 1 hour I had a lot of things, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. It was a good decision to Streamlit. But then I spent like hour and a half, so already more than I've from the beginning, to fix some bug due to the caching and like reactivity mechanism of Streamlit. So you can Google more about like what is the reactivity mechanism of Streamlit, but it's not very state friendly in many ways. Dash is basically stateless, so it's also not state friendly. Django is like that's like using sledgehammer to crack a nut. And I believe and I see for projects that we are doing that PyShiny has this really nice compromise between easy to POC and easy also to make up production ready. And we think that it will not replace RShiny, but it will be a very nice dark burning library for Python. And question from Conrad. Is it required to reload a page after some time of inactivity? What do you mean by that? If you have an app deployed on POSIT Connect, then yes, but it's not PyShiny thing. It's a thing related to how POSIT Connect optimize things and so on. But in this, but here not. If you have running app, then you don't have to reload it. It should work all the time. I've killed the server here, so if I don't know. I mean, so if I reload this page, it will disappear. Generally, you don't have to reload the page to have the interactivity. Yeah. So one last thing, because we are approaching the end. Review. Yeah. So one last thing is that. Okay. So I was waiting for so long to show you this code space that it already has been stopped. The point is that if you press use code space in next to the so if you use this open in the code space, you can actually play around with Tapyr, because you will be using a dev container environment run on GitHub servers, and you can play with Tapyr there. So you don't have to set up Poetry on your machine. You don't have to set up Docker on your machine. And I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you very much for this hour. I hope that you've learned something. For one more time, I really recommend to you to go to these docs, because they're like full of very cool knowledge, and I believe that you may want to apply it in one of your projects, not necessarily even in Tapyr, and not necessarily for Python. Thank you for today.
Thank you so much, Pasha. And thank you everyone for sticking around to the very end. And yeah, so to follow up on Tapir, as Pasha has already said, you can check out the documentation. It's pinned in the chat, the blog post, the GitHub repository is there. Then you can subscribe to our newsletter and join our community on Slack to ask your questions to Pasha directly in case you have any, or you would like to contribute. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you in our next event. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.